Hello, everyone. It's another Black Conservative. I am Ryan Boland. Thank you all for joining me. What I want to talk about in this video is the incident that occurred in New York City on the New York City subway. And I know you guys are pretty familiar with it right now about the Marine that put a chokehold on a homeless man, and the homeless individual eventually died from this chokehold, allegedly. Okay, now I had been wanting to talk about this incident for a few days, and I could not find any articles or news sources on this incident that I could really read from and get more detail from. I've been hearing about it from other YouTube content creators, and I wanted to have something to say about it as well, because and I just couldn't find it. I just couldn't find any sources. Now I've just recently found the source, so I'm going to read from this source, some portion from this source, and give you guys my commentary. But I will say this right up front before I even get into this, is that this, as you already know, is causing a big like huge mess, if you will, for lack of a better word, from the mainstream media and from groups who are protesting against this and looking and asking for justice. And you already know where this is coming from. This is coming from a racial perspective. That's always, for the most part, how the mainstream media presents it. No wonder everybody's so angry. No wonder everybody's walking around with a chip on their shoulder, because the mainstream media spins just about everything that has to do with black and white people, that convert situations with black and white people. They always spin it as a racial component. As a result, it keeps us all separated and divided. But let's get more into this in detail, because I'm going to give you more of my commentary on that a little later. So the article says the New York City subway rider accused in the chokehold death of a homeless man is a U.S. Marine veteran who is acting to protect himself and other riders and never intended harm, his lawyer said Friday evening. Daniel J. Penny, 24, has been identified by authorities as a man who allegedly put Jordon Neely in a chokehold following what police said was an altercation Monday on a northbound train, according to two law enforcement officials familiar with the investigation. When Mr. Neely began aggressively threatening Daniel Penny and the other passengers, Daniel, with the help of others, acted to protect themselves until help arrived, lawyers for Penny said in a statement Friday evening. Daniel never intended to harm Mr. Neely and could not have foreseen his untimely death. Neely, 30, was unconscious when police arrived at the Broadway and East Houston Street subway station and pronounced dead at a hospital, New York police said. He died from, quote, a compression of neck, and they have in parentheses chokehold, and the manner was homicide, the city chief medical examiner's office said. Penny was taken into custody Monday, questioned by police, and released. No charges have been filed against him. Lawmakers and others asked why he was not held by law enforcement authorities longer. Well, it just said no fouls, but let's go on. On Friday, two sources familiar with the matter said Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is expected to present the case to a grand jury for its consideration of possible charges. The timing of when charges might materialize or when the case would otherwise close without prosecution was not clear. Penny's lawyer said Neely had a documented history of violent and erratic behavior, the apparent result of ongoing and untreated mental illness. And that's all I'm going to read right there in that article. I think that article, I don't know if it's completely a liberal article or whatever. I really don't know fully. But I was able to find that article and read from that and get the information I have. You can read further if you find an article. Look at the description box below and click onto that. You can read further into that article. It talks about this man Neely having a history, as it said earlier, and as I just read, had a history of mental illness and threats. And in fact, other sources said that he would threaten people in the past and so forth, and he was very erratic. Now, here's what I can give based on the information that I've read from that article and the information I've gleaned from other YouTube sources, okay, is that, in my opinion, based on what I have seen before me, I do not believe that this former Marine purposely wanted to kill this man. I don't believe that. Now, there's a picture, a photo in the article, there's a photo of the Marine with the chokehold, what they call the chokehold, on the homeless man, and they're on the ground. Now, I don't know what happened prior to that. The article even states that the videos that were taken from some of the people on the subway, on the train, they did not give information on what happened prior to the chokehold incident. No one knows for sure. But all we know is, all I saw rather, was the fact that this Marine had him in a chokehold and he was on the ground. The Marine was laying flat on his back, the picture shows, the photo shows, and the homeless man was on top of him. So it looks like, based on what I've seen, there might have been a struggle. Now, in my opinion, if this man had a history of erratic behavior and a history of mental illness and a history of threats, he made threats to people and so forth, then I could gather that perhaps this former Marine felt threatened, because the article goes on to say that Neely threatened the Marine and so forth. And I don't know what happened that led up to him putting him in the chokehold. I don't know. Maybe Neely tried to put his hands on him. Maybe Neely tried to put his hands on somebody on the bus. Accordingly, he had a history of mental illness and a history of threatening people. So I really can't say. But I can say this, that I myself, as a security officer working in downtown Cleveland and Tower City, deal with homeless people and deal with mentally ill people on a consistent basis. And some of the mentally ill people can be erratic. Some of them do make threats, and some of them get way out of hand. I've never had to put my hands on any of them, because as a security officer in a contract security firm, we don't have the authority to do so. I've been trained as a police officer. I graduated from the police academy, but that certification is no longer effective. Number one is null and void. That was what, in 2006 when I graduated. Okay. In addition to that, I don't have the authority to use any type of force, physical force, on my job as a contract security officer. Maybe a private security officer, yes, but contract, no. Okay, I'm trained to do it, but I'm not authorized to do so. So having said that, the only thing I could suggest is that in a situation like this, I believe personally that this was an act of self-defense. It would make no sense for this former Marine, before all these people, decide, hey, I'm going to choke this guy out because I just don't like black people. I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that, because the article goes on to say that, in fact, there were other people that were trying to assist him. So clearly, if there was other people trying to assist and help, then I'm pretty sure that they weren't trying to assist and help Neely. They were trying to assist and help the former Marine. Now, let me say something about the so-called chokehold. When I was going through the private security academy back in 2004, and we got to the self-defense portion of the private security academy, the instructor, who was a trained martial artist, I don't know what particular form of martial arts he was trained in, but he was a trained martial artist, and he told us, and I'm paraphrasing his words, that there's a difference between a chokehold and what is called the lateral vascular neck restraint. Okay, a chokehold is when you cut the air from a person's windpipe and you cut the air out, and that chokes him out. That chokes the air out. Okay, he says that's a chokehold. He says that many police officers in the past that did not use the lateral vascular neck restraint concept, or the lateral vascular neck restraint, if they didn't use it properly, they ended up choking the person out and killing him. The purpose of the lateral vascular neck restraint is to restrain oxygen to the brain by compressing the blood vessels or the jugular veins or blood vessels, whatever, in the neck. And that keeps oxygen from reaching the brain, and the person blacks out, or rather passes out, but they don't necessarily die, from what I understand. Okay, I know that because during this training we used this method on each other. We had to practically use this method on each other. I use it on some of my classmates. They use it on me. needless to say, we didn't go all the way through it. It wasn't like, okay, put this lateral vascular neck restraint on this person and make them black out. We didn't do that, but we could feel the power. Okay, now in this situation where the man died, I don't know. I don't know, because it could be because the way I saw how this Marine had this guy, and it did not look like a chokehold. A chokehold. See, they keep calling it a chokehold. It's not it's not a chokehold. I don't really know what this man died from. It could have been from complications. Remember, he's mentally ill. It could have been from complications. It could have been heart situations. The implication that the media seems to be portraying is that he died from this chokehold on his neck. Okay. Or what I would call a lateral vascular neck restraint, not necessarily a chokehold, where you're not trying to kill somebody. But who knows? I don't know. I'm not saying that it was intentional message. I don't know. In my opinion, I believe it was unintentional. I don't believe that he was trying to intentionally take this man's life. But the mainstream media and liberal groups are protesting and boo-hooing and hooping and hollering and shouting and getting mad and saying, we want justice. We want justice. I am so sick and tired of these groups. I really am. And another thing that I'm sick and tired of, too, is how black people in general tend to fall for this narrative all the time. They buy stuff from white people. They eat stuff from stuff. They buy these food. They buy these products from white people. They do all this type of stuff that a lot of whites have created to make our life better and easier. And yet, at the same time, they let the mainstream media spin these narratives to them filled with hate. And that can be so frustrating and aggravating to see all the time. And I can't help but wonder, when are blacks in general going to wake up and see that we're being manipulated by the mainstream media? We're being manipulated by liberal politicians. We're being manipulated by liberal academia. We're being manipulated psychologically. This is a psyops war, a psychological warfare on the minds of black people and the minds of all Americans, period, really. And we're being pitted against each other, in my opinion. Okay, when are we going to see this? Every incident that involves a white person, a black person, is not always racial, but the mainstream media makes it out to be. And you get these groups, and you get people like what's his name, Jesse Jackson and Reverend Al Sharpton, if you want to call him a reverend, jumping and pooting and snotting, and we need justice and we want this and we want that, instead of taking their time to wait and see what the real evidence portrays. What is the real factual data in this situation? Let's wait and see. Let's not jump on it. But that's what they do all the time. They jump on it. They assume it's race related, and then you find out that it's not. But what happens is the damage have already been done. A significant number of black people now think it's all race related, so they walking around with a chip on their shoulder, hollering at me, calling me a sellout on my job, and I'm wondering what the world's going on. I go on my job, and I'm looking at people looking at me like they're ready to kill me, and I'm wondering, what the heck is everybody mad about? Mostly black people. I don't hear no white people doing it. I'm just real with you. And I'm like, what's wrong? What happened? Then I find out, the news spun some stupid story, all out of proportion, all out of context, and now unthinking black people are walking around with a chip and a boulder on their shoulder, mad at me because they look at me as some kind of betrayer of their race. I've had people telling me he don't love the black race, and just out of nowhere. I've had them slam doors in my face. I'm trying to go inside the building with my bike, and people come up and they slam the door. They slam the door in my face. That may sound comical, but if I'd have been somebody with no integrity, I'd have slammed my fist in their face, and I would have lost my job. But I get paid at the end of the day. They're not worth me losing my job over their ignorance. But the point is, I suffer persecution, verbal and sometimes in threats and stuff like that, because of for the most part, what's being portrayed on the mainstream media. And this is just one of those incidents. In my opinion, based on the information that I already know, it seems I would conclude that this was not an intentional attempt to take this man's life. Now, should something be done? Yes, it should be investigated further to see if he should be charged, of course. Now, the thing say he was charged with homicide, okay, but I'm not going to get into that. I personally don't believe that that's what it was. I don't think it was intentional. But this man has had a history of threats. He's had a history of mental illness. And I'm sorry that happened, but I deal with this, like I said, I deal with this type of stuff all the time in downtown Cleveland. I deal with it all the time, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. So I know personally how a lot of these mentally ill people are. Okay, so I got to deal with them personally, and it ain't always pretty. Okay, but that's just my word on that. I don't think he intentionally did this, but of course, the mainstream media is going to make it into something else, and they're going to. Let me say this and in this video on this. I think part of the reason why the mainstream media is pushing this race rhetoric so intensely is because election, 2024 is the time we're going to start having to elect a new president. And they have to push this narrative. The Democrats do. The liberal media, i.e. the Democrats, got to push this narrative because the Democrats support that same narrative. They support it. Okay? They have to push that because they know that black people, when push comes to shove, black people are going to always vote Democrat. Why? Because conservatives and Republicans are racist against you. And they want to kill you, and white people want to kill you. So Democrats, for the most part, and liberals push that narrative. And they're going to continue to push it and continue to push it and continue to push it until election time comes. And I guarantee, I hope I'm wrong. I guarantee you, blacks going to vote Democrat like they always do. Over 90% of blacks, according to one statistical finding, said vote Democrat all the time. No matter what kind of policies Democrats put in place, that's not helping the black community, blacks still vote for them. They'll complain and poot and cry and holler, this, that, and the other, like in Chicago, crying and complaining about that new mayor, the mayor-elect. You voted for him. Now you want to cry and complain now that he's trying to do some kind of immigration. I ain't going to get into that. That's going to be another video. No, you voted for him. And this is what blacks fall for every single time. And the establishment knows it, and that's why they keep playing that record all the time, because blacks keep falling for it. So I hope I'm wrong, but I guarantee you, watch, when it comes down to voting time, blacks going to vote Democrat. They're going to watch. We watch. You watch. I ain't going to vote for them jokers, but they will. I hope I'm wrong. But that's my narrative on this. That's my opinion. And what do you guys think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel. God bless you all. See you again.